if there are any questions that you might have, you were thinking of when the panelists were speaking, now's the time to ask them. This is your chance.
And I'm open to anyone answering this. Would anyone be willing to share their greatest failure and what the greatest lesson was that they learned from it? How did it propel you forward? How do you pick up the pieces when things have fallen apart? Because in your success story, there had to be those moments when things just didn't add up or feel the way we planned them to be.
Let's start with the middle of the crew, and then we'll work our way out. Kelly?
Next question.
I knew she'd be quick, so. If you don't, you could.
I was trying to pick among them, sadly. So my second job out of school was at KYW in Philadelphia, and I was there for a year, and I was a local producer, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I thought I could work my way through it and figure it out, but when we talked about first impressions, sort of the cast, the die has been set, the cast has been set, whatever the expression is, and I got fired after a year, and it was devastating. I was 27. I defined myself, but I thought that I figured out what I wanted to do for a living. I wanted to work in television sports, and ESPN hired me. And it's funny, because ESPN initially, I got a rejection, not even letter, a freaking postcard, which I wish I saved now, because I've been there for, I think, 28 years now. But they gave me the chance, and this time, I entered as an associate producer, and this time, instead of going in, trying to prove myself, being all strong, this hard shell on me, I realized that I needed to be humble, and I needed to learn, and I needed to walk before I could run. And ESPN was young enough then, and there was just so much going on, and it wasn't as political as it is now. So literally, you got a ton of opportunities. I mean, I started working on the show Outside the Lines when it first started. I think it was either 89 or 90, and that's where I was able to develop my niche and my passion. But overcoming the trauma of getting fired and being unemployed and not knowing what the next step was terrifying and debilitating, and it defined me. Probably for the next 3 years, I was scared until I finally found my niche at ESPN with Outside the Lines. So, when you have a setback, know that it can be temporary, but you're the only one who can make it temporary.
That's great, and we have several panelists who have one big thing in common. They've either been in sports as a player or a front office person or as a journalist. And the one thing that they say in sports is that this was told to me by a former head coach in the NFL who was a friend of mine. He said, one thing you're going to learn as you make your way through sports, Q, is you are nobody until somebody fires you. It seems like in sports, everybody's waiting to get fired because that's what happens with players. 99.9% get fired at some point. Coaches, same thing. And so having to come back from that is a big deal. And Ronaldo, you tell the story about Joe Gibbs, and Steve, you probably could do the same thing. How do you pick yourself up from what is perceived as a failure?
Well, you've heard a few of the failures that I've had. I got cut by Coach Gibbs. I almost got kicked out of Notre Dame. Before I even got to Notre Dame, I had to deal with, to me, I felt was a failure, and at times you want to throw in the towel when it really gets bad, because when I got to Notre Dame, it was a #1 recruiting class, and I'll never forget, I was a small guy, if you can believe that, but I was about 205, and they put me at safety and redshirted me my freshman year, and I'll never forget, we were practicing in the indoor facility, and Jerome Bettis was the running back. And Jerome just ran over a guy. And it was pretty, I mean, it was pretty, for me, I was intimidated. And I felt like, man, I don't belong here, because people had already said, man, you would never play at Notre Dame. You're not an All-American like the other guys are. You would never play. And I remember the coach, son, get in there. This ain't no free scholarship, guy named Coach Wessel. So I get in there at safety. I'm in the back there. I'm praying that somebody will stop this guy, because I just saw him run over a guy. And this thing opens up like the Red Sea, and he's coming straight at me. To be honest, I'm about to piss on myself, excuse my language, but and I'm like, man, I just got to go take this dude's legs out, because, man, I'm not going to get run over. So I did the worst thing you can do, Steve and Rich. I put my head down and closed my eyes. And when I tried to take his legs out, I mean, I didn't touch a soul. I didn't even touch a shoestring. And that's one thing Jerome Bettis had. He was a big guy. He was powerful, but he could move. He put a move on me. So, I mean, it was crazy. The guys started jumping up and down, laughing at the young rookie. But needless to say, the one guy that I didn't want to see was Lou Holtz, who was already in my face, grabbing my helmet and telling me, Sean, I don't know where you guys gave this guy a scholarship. You don't deserve to be here at Notre Dame. I mean, he's berating me in front of everybody. He's telling me I don't deserve to be here. And then he told me, he said, you're going to redshirt. Not only are you going to redshirt, but you can't even practice. So I wasn't even good enough to practice. Rudy practiced. You know what I mean? He was the practice dummy at least. I couldn't even practice. So he told me he wanted me in the weight room and the workout and stuff. And every now and then I can kind of come out and practice. But man, it was really a tough time for me, because I started to doubt myself. I thought that I wasn't good enough. I should have went to a smaller school. I started to believe people that were telling me all the negative stuff. But then there are always people, like Eve talked about, there are going to be people that's going to try to bring you down, try to keep you stationary, or try to bring you up. And I had some people that said, man, you have nothing to lose. The least you can do, you may not be the best guy, you may not be the most intelligent guy, but you have a work ethic. That's one thing you can control. You can wake up every day and decide that you're going to have a work ethic. And I woke up every day, man, and that fueled my fire. Long story short, I beat out the other All-Americans that was in front of me and started as a redshirt freshman. And as you heard, getting kicked out of school was really my coming to faith moment, because I didn't tell you this, but 2 years that had passed, I had never prayed. You want to talk about somebody as a Jesus freak. I was a totally opposite. Never prayed, never went to church. I didn't want to have anything to do with anybody that was talking about religion that I thought about, didn't know about the relationship side. And right there was my foxhole moment, that I prayed and I asked God really for two things. I asked him for a wife and to get me out of that situation. I met my wife a month later. We got married 3 months after we met. We could celebrate our 20th year anniversary coming up in June. So for me, not believing what everybody else is going to tell you, even though it may not look it, the odds are stacked up against you. But for me, it was my faith, and I knew God was real. I didn't understand. I thought it was just religion. I didn't understand about the relationship side, and I realized that it wasn't just about me, that it was so many other people depending on me, and more importantly, trusting God through it all.
That's great. What a story. Yeah, you can, yeah. Steve, maybe you can talk a little bit about failure as well, and how you how you pick yourself up from failure.
Yeah, I don't know if I can follow that.
Yeah, it's that was a heck of a story.
Wow. Well, for me, my college situation, I would say in sports, my biggest failure was in college, and it wasn't 100% a failure. I guess I looked at it as a failure. My deal was I could not stay healthy. I was told how good I was. Some of my friends would even have bets and argue who is the best athlete on the team. I would get a lot of votes. I was the starting punt returner, kickoff returner, starting corner, and I never played more than 4 to 5 games until my senior year. And actually, one year I missed the entire year, and it was very frustrating. In 1989, back when you didn't come back from injuries like an ACL tear, I ripped my ACL up in Morgantown, West Virginia. Not only did I tear my ACL, I tore my lateral and my medial meniscus, which is your cartilage. And I just messed my knee up really bad. Also my MCL, I mean, I just ripped it up. And I'll never forget this. I went to the University of Pittsburgh, so when you play West Virginia, which it was called the backyard brawl, you don't fly. I mean, it's so close, you don't fly. You take the bus. And my coaches felt bad for me, and, you know, I'm on the bus in the back, and I'm all the way in the back because you know how the chairs, those back in '89, they still had like the 4 seats in a row next to the bathroom, sort of, right? So I'm in the back with my knee up, propped up, because they had it wrapped in ice. And I fell asleep. And this is unbelievable. And I may tear up. But I had a dream driving from Morgantown, West Virginia to the University of Pittsburgh back. I had a dream that I blew my knee out. And in my dream, I'm kind of happy, like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. I didn't really blow my knee out, it was just a dream. So now in my dream, I'm excited. And right at that moment, like when I'm in my dream kind of like cheering, like, yeah, it's just a dream. I didn't get hurt. My roommate, you all right? You need me to get you something? And I woke up and my leg is wet because the ice had melted and my knee is throbbing, and I'll never forget how I felt because I had worked so hard. I just wanted to be a starting corner, you know, playing with, matter of fact, on ESPN, you see a guy named Louis Riddick. He's one of the analysts on ESPN now. His name's Big Lou, Louis Riddick. He was the starting safety. Actually, a young kid had just won the starting, he had just got there, but he was trying to become the starting free safety. He's the general manager for the Buffalo Bills right now, Doug Whaley. So anyway, I was just so disappointed, but I'll never forget. I said, okay, you got a couple options, buddy. What are you gonna do? And I just always remember this. My goal is here, regardless of what happens on the road to get there, you're gonna get to your goal. So don't worry about whatever happens. And now I gotta not worry about something real big. In '89, it's kind of hard to come back from an ACL. It wasn't what it is today. So at the end of the day, that was my biggest failure in sports. And I won't make this a story, but I'm just going to tell you, I've had a failure that was bigger than that outside of sports, and it was the most difficult thing that I had ever been through.
Whatever, dude. We want to hear that.
I share with you I'm in the insurance business, but I'm also in and that's just one part of it. But the wealth management business that covers it all. Well, to get into that world, you have to take a test called the Series 7. And when I was like 21 years old, I saw how big the books were, all these chapters, and I knew deep down inside that's what I wanted to do. But I'm not going to lie to you. At a young age, I was intimidated by it. So I said, I'll be all right. I got my econ degree. I don't need that. So anyway, getting to the point is, I told you earlier how I stressed education. Education is in everything that I do. I stress that to my kids, the whole nine. Anyway, I'm studying for this Series 7. I go to take the Series 7. I fail. This is the first time. Now, granted, we're not perfect, and I've had a lot of failures, but basically my kids thought I was invincible. They never really seen anything really bad happen to me. But now they know Dad is studying for this test, and they're sending me texts and making me signs, and they already got the restaurant we're gonna go to for Dad's celebration dinner. I gotta come home and look at my wife and my kids and tell them I didn't pass, I failed. And I was like, wow, this is the first time I have to tell them something like this big. And they were shocked. But I said, you know what, this is a great opportunity for all those times you're telling them to study, and they've fallen short. Now they see you fall short. What are you going to do about it? So long story short, obviously, I had to take it again, and I passed. And why is it that after I passed the second time, they get gifts and they get all this stuff, but they didn't do anything for me.
Because they're smart.
That's wonderful. Any other comments from any of the other panelists on that?